Hello everyone, I'm Aiden, and I like to build things. And today, I have another strange one that I finally have assembled here and want to talk about. So, yeah, I already have an unboxing video of this as a previous video on my channel, and did a handful of live streams assembling this on this channel as well. So, this is just going to be my overall opinions on the final assembled kit, and a recommendation from me whether or not I think this is worth your time and money. So, anyways, before we get into the figure itself, just quickly I'll brush up on a couple of things here. So quickly, I'll just, probably should move this to the side. Gonna bring the box back out here yet again, just because I want to take a moment to appreciate the art that's on the front of it here. I believe it is a 3D render of the Dunbine itself that's been repainted by hand. Yeah, CG Works, credited to Michiya Kato. I hope I pronounced that correctly. But yeah, a kit from the year. I don't think I'll fix it in post. A kit from the year 2000. So we're looking at a kit that's about 25 years old now. Now, age doesn't necessarily mean a kit is bad. I mean, I have this lovely little ditty here that is even older than this, coming out in 84, 85, I'm forgetting the exact year right now. But yeah, I mean, obviously it needs paint. I'm holding a fair bit of this together with tape, but compared to something like the Walker Gallia kit that I reviewed earlier, this is very sturdy, actually kind of fun to pose and just kind of mess around with. So, you know, this is a little newer than that one. So you would think, with advancements in Gunpla technology and the Master Grade being out for a couple of years at this point, you might be in for a treat here, especially if you compare this to the a high grade that came out at around the same time, which I do not own. I have no particularly strong desire to own, because that kit does not look enjoyable to me in the slightest. But I know a couple of things about it thanks to Hobby Clubhouse's video of it here on YouTube. So if you're curious about that, I would recommend watching his video on it. But I will be referencing it in regards to this kit, since I think they are a little comparable here. But if I just pick it up here so I can show y'all some of the details here. And firstly, I just want to say, like, this is a 1/35th scale kit, and I'll talk more about how it scales to things later, but this kit is huge compared to what I was expecting it to look like, or be like in person. It's got a fair bit of height to it, standing at, one moment here, you include the head antenna, 24-25 centimeters, almost 10 inches tall. So yeah, it's pretty big, and I am not even gonna bother trying to put that in right yet, because, oh boy. So, I don't know a whole lot about Aura Battler Dunbine, but I mostly got this because it seems in the early days of the Master Grade line, Bandai was branching away from Gundam stuff for the line, and they did. This was actually the last one of these non-Gundam Master Grades that they did. All the previous ones were from Patlabor, and those kits are actually fairly similar to this one in terms of their engineering. They rely heavily on screws. They use interesting materials like rubbers, and some of them even have electronic components in them to for the Patlabor kits to give them their flashing sirens and whatnot. Now this kit has rubber parts to screws in basically every joint, and a spindly yet robust ABS inner frame hidden underneath all of these armor panels here. And, I mean, one positive right off the bat is that those screws and that ABS frame makes this thing very stable. If I quickly do this, just to demonstrate, like, it can stand up on its own, even though it has this massive, massive backpack, which is largely composed of 3 massive purplish blue pieces there with extra bits and bobs on the side of it there. So, yeah. But my original point I was trying to make is this is the last kit in that line of Master Grade kits of non-Gundam things, and then Bandai basically didn't make 1/100 kits based on non-Gundam things. They tried again with the Real Robot line, Real Robot Revolution line a couple years after that, which, yeah, they're 1/100 kits, but technically not master grades. But even that was short-lived. I think there were even fewer kits in that line than there were in this offshoot of master grades. And then, you know, Bandai just stops making public releases of non-Gundam series kits. They just love putting that stuff on P Bandai. But yeah, about this kit itself though, so like I said, ABS inner frame with screws. This thing is, aside from the opening panels here for the backpack, which there are ABS parts in there, but it's ABS parts and a couple of polycaps to allow them to open like that. This thing is very sturdy, very rigid. Even the wings have no problem standing out vertically. However, not every joint is perfect. As you can see, there's a bit of a fitting issue on the forearm here, which it'll stay in there, but it's easy to pop it out of place. And I'm going to collapse these wings back down because they're colliding with everything on my desk. But before I do that, I just want to mention again, lovely sculpted detail on these wings. They do need paint on this part right here, and you could maybe stand to darken the color on the veins in it slightly, and you need to paint the inside of this. I know that this is all supposed to be different colors. These parts here are, according to the color guide, are meant to be like gold or bronze, but these are soft rubber, which I don't know how well that'll handle paint. At least it's not really moving a whole lot in there, but soft rubber is something that this kit uses in a wide variety of places to almost exclusively a negative effect. If I go into the articulation here, I think that'll convey that pretty good. Starting with the head, I mean, it's completely unimpeded by much of anything, even with that big antenna on there. You can angle it back a decent amount. I feel like that's pretty good if you wanted it in a flying pose. It is double jointed, but the bottom joint is really stiff, so it looks down again a decent enough amount, and it pivots side to side, spins, yeah, and it's nice and sturdy with pretty much a fresh polycap in there. This kit, I will say this kit was recently re-released on P Bandai, not as a P Bandai kit. They're just selling more stock of it. However, I bought mine on Amazon, actually, and I'm forgetting the name of the seller who sold it to me, so I'll put it somewhere on screen here while I'm editing it. But anyway, we move on to the arms here. They spin almost completely all the way around. You do have to angle the arm out slightly for the backpack. They are just on a ball joint in there, and a pretty deep one, so movement is limited. And then here is where we start seeing some of our problems here. So this forearm stays on a little better than that one, but I'm going to be a little careful with it. You are able to spin it up here, but as part of the Dunbine's design, we have rubber pieces for these tubes, and they're not like the rubber hoses you get with some other kits, and I think even other versions of the Dunbine just use like little rubber hoses for that. These are on the same runner as this part right here in the neck, and this part here in the elbow, which I'm going to take this off just for simplicity's sake here, and uh-oh, that armor piece is coming off. It loves doing that. It's coming off over here too. Anyway, yeah, if I just position this here, it's a double jointed elbow, but you can get it up to there, but then the rubber in there, which there's a rubber piece right in there covered up by this armor, pushes it back out. So realistically, you're only able to get a 90-degree bend out of the arm, despite it being a double joint. And then the hand is on a fairly deep ball joint, relatively unimpeded, and these claws here angle up and down slightly. And I don't think this will come across well on this footage here, but the claws on the feet and in the near the hands have this really interesting semi-transparent look to them in the plastic. It actually makes them look like real nails or animal claws, which, you know, it's a nice touch. But yeah, the arm not the best. And the hands, which I'll show real quickly here. As you can see here, just pop this off for a moment here. You have this hand for holding the sword, which is two pieces that, yes, can hold each other together, but you need to glue them. However, once they are together, you cannot slide the sword into the hand because of the pommel on there. It's too big, so maybe you can finagle it in there around the thumb, but really, I think the way that they intend you to build this kit is you put the sword in the hand and then you glue it in there. Now, if I'm physically holding the hand together, you'll see the sword is kind of wobbly in there, but you get it locked in there, it's decent enough. But for painting, I feel like that is a terrible idea, that you need to put the sword in the hand and then glue the hand around it, because without the glue in there, the seam starts to open, the sword gets loose, and yeah, it eventually just all falls apart. And when you have it on an arm that doesn't really want to stay on all that well anyway, it's really frustrating. But on top of that, the other hand, you get the same thing, just mirrored, two pieces. So if you wanted the Dunbine to hold its sword in its left hand, or if you maybe wanted to have it pointing, because I guess that's how it holds its sword. And then for the other, or for the right hand, excuse me, you just get another open hand like I have on the left hand there. You don't have any closed fist options for this kit, which I guess I feel like in a lot of the art I've seen of Aura Battler, it is just kind of whimsically splaying out its hands like this. But I know that the new Premium Bandai high grade version of this, I believe that does have fists, and I'm pretty sure those can actually hold the sword, which, ironic how the high grade version of this kit used rubber for its hands, and because it was rubber and the sword is pretty big, like compared to those hands, couldn't hold that thing either. And you would think, because these hands are solid plastic, and they are polystyrene, but because of that egregious seam in them and the way they're designed, this thing can't really hold its sword either. You can get it in a sort of equilibrium where the pommel is like mounted or pressed against this oddly shaped arm here, and you can sort of get it to pose with that, which any of the pictures I've taken of this thing so far, that's how I've done it. But it's no fun when you have to like find a workaround for questionable engineering. But anyways, I guess we can call this part of the articulation here. The cockpit does open, as you would expect on a master grade kit, although it needs to pull out and then open, and these clear pieces, as you can see, do not want to stay in their hinges there. These aren't polycaps, it's plastic on plastic, but another thing that is fiddly, and it doesn't really need to be, you gotta angle it just right, otherwise they'll pop out. And then this angles upward, and you probably can't see that because it's green on gray. But interesting that this is a whole bunch of green in here. I know I commented on it in my build videos and the unboxing of this, but this shade of green that they have for the pilot figures and a few pieces throughout the kit itself, including the hands, by the way, it's just an interesting shade. But he's in there. He does technically need glue to hold his arms on, but if you don't touch them that much, it's not that big a deal. And there is a fair bit of detail in there, although a few of those pieces in there are ABS, so it's, if you want to paint them, you have to be careful what paint you use. And this will be my moment to mention, this kit does have a foil sticker sheet. These two blue panels go into these rectangles on the sides of the cockpit, which I'll turn that flashlight on again. Those rectangles next to his head in there, that's where those go. And then the yellow stripes go on its head, which is kind of interesting that the 1.0 RX-78 Master Grade had the color separated stripe in its like crotch, and this is about the same size as that, yet this is just, aside from the antenna, one solid molded piece. So you need to paint it, but at least that piece is polystyrene, so it should take to most paints without much issue. Next bit here, we have the, I guess I should have mentioned this all angles upwards as well at two-ish places, but The bases of these are incredibly stiff, which it's ABS on ABS, and this is pretty heavy on its own, so it's not a bad thing that it's stiff. It's just you can't really do much with that. If I move the wings out of the way here, which are on a hinge and a ball joint, by the way, and a fairly sturdy one too. We do have a bit of ab articulation here. It's a double hinge inside of this assembly here, and I was afraid that was going to happen. There are two L-shaped pieces in here that attach on both sides. However, this is one of those places where you need a screw to keep it assembled, and I lost the screw. So if I articulate that joint too much, it comes loose and comes off. So yeah, that's not ideal. Hopefully I can either find the screw itself or a replacement for it. Otherwise that is going to be maddening to deal with. But while I have the lower part disassembled here, I will say you don't really get much of a swivel in here. I believe this is mounted on something that should be able to spin, but it's so recessed in there that you can't get much out of it. But you do get a bit of an arching back, a bit forward, which would be a lot more stable if the screw was in there. But the hips, these are limited both by their time period and their design. No universal joints here to be seen, just a single ball joint, which very stiff one, which necessary for how big the backpack is, but a little nerve-wracking to deal with. Basically, very little of a spread. You can pivot them a decent amount up here though, which is nice. You get basically a full kick forward, and I think that leg was coming loose there, so I had to pop it in. But yeah, there's no skirt armor on the Dunbine. Barely on... well, that popped off, which I feel like is also probably because of the rubber piece that's in there yet again, just kind of pushing back against this connector and making it want to come out, but I have it back in there well enough. And then furthering with our weird uses of rubber, I mean, it looks nice on the build kit, so I can sort of see why they wanted to do it, but much like the arms, there is a double joint here. Oh geez, get back in there. And I guess unlike the arms, it doesn't really spring back as much, but despite the double joint, you get a 90-degree bend there, which, you know, I guess it's sort of limited by, again, time period and design, so it's not that big a deal, but something to be aware of. More interesting use of rubber pieces, and it looks like mine unfortunately got warped. I don't think that's necessarily an issue of shipping, it might be just the age of this. And then you do have a bit more rubber exposed on the undersides of the legs here, which is neat, because if you watched my unboxing video and my build streams, you'll know the inner sides of these leg armor here. If I can pop this off, actually, I should be able to. Yeah, they are using rubber pieces on the inner frame to look like muscles. And you know, that is not a bad use of rubber, if you ask me. Kind of adds to the, I guess, realism of this kit, which I feel like Master Grades are always trying to give that air of realism to the mecha you build, and that's kind of why I like them so much. So, aside from the joints and the tubing on the arms, it's just, that's the only things that really bring this down in terms of the rubber. They limit the articulation, but to finish out the articulation, you have a ball joint on a very slight hinge up in the foot there, which honestly doesn't give you, I mean, it gives you just enough for what the hips can do, but it is, well, fragile, first of all. Geez, come on now. You get a little bit front to back, but what it really needed is maybe like an L-shaped hinge to help get it out and down like old Zaku high grades used to have. And then each of the toes bends ever so slightly, but is limited by the pieces you put on underneath to give the bottom of the feet a little bit of detail. And then I will just quickly mention that the claws have some hollow spaces, but they're on the underside. I don't think it's that big a deal. Now, hopefully I don't have to make too substantial of a jump cut here, but I have to get this reassembled here, so hopefully we'll cut back to me having this fully assembled again. I'm not done yet, but since I have it partially disassembled, I will just show this. That little hole there is where the screw is supposed to go. if it weren't for just how big and heavy these two segments are, this is fairly sturdy on its own. And as you can see, you have a hinge at the bottom and a hinge at the top. And it is, like I said, a peg in there, but again, that poly cap is so recessed in there, and just the general shape of this don't allow for much articulation in that part of the waist unit there. Oh, are you kidding me? I went to put it back in there, and then it split again. So I need to find that screw ASAP. This is getting very frustrating. Let me see if I can, maybe I can do this. I'm going to try one more time to get this assembled because I'm not done talking about this, and I'm going to have to film B-roll footage after I'm done recording this part. Alright, I lost the chest panels, but I have it back together. So it is actually able to twist in there, although without the screw in there, you make that joint come loose without it. Otherwise, it stays together fairly well. So there is a twist down there. I just lost the screw that's supposed to hold it together, so I can't really take advantage of it, but it's a very minimal twist, so not missing too much. But yeah, that's the articulation of this. It's very limited for a design as flowing and as smooth as this. I feel like it's sort of like how the Hyakushiki demands to have like good articulation to really convey its awesome design. And you know, I haven't seen Dunbine yet as of making this video, but I can't deny it. It's a great mecha design. It's just so fascinating. The biomechanical thing, the bug-like aesthetic. But it's just kind of unfortunate that this kit is really trapped in its era. It's very limited in what it can do, and it requires a fair bit of TLC on your part to do what it can. But I think the counterpoint to that is that, you know, aside from a couple of very minor missing colors, this kit looks great right out of the box. I can't complain really much at all about how it looks. Everything is as smooth and as wavy as I would want it to be. It's a really fun size, so it has a bit of a presence in my collection for sure. And I do intend on at least partially painting this, at least to get the yellow stripes on the head, maybe to get our included pilot figures more detailed, because I believe both of them are supposed to be various shades of blue and like black hair, flesh tone of course. But yeah, they're molded in green, both of them are. And then yeah, the other accessories you get are the aura shot, which I did remove from the arm earlier during the articulation, but you get two of them, which is nice. You have one for each arm if you get tired of trying to make this thing hold its sword, which you just get the one sword, and it does actually fit into the scabbard. It doesn't lock in there or anything, so as soon as you turn it upside, oh, never mind, there is just enough friction in there to hold that sword in, so I stand corrected. And the scabbard itself is on a ball joint with a poly cap, so it can move pretty uninhibited, and you can almost get it to get back there and reach the sword, although with how long it is, I don't know how it would be able to take it out. I am aware it's missing its hand there. I'm just going to put it back together to do my B-roll footage, which, speaking of, I'm going to take a moment here just to talk while I let my future editing self convey most of what I want to put on screen. Hey everyone, it's editing me that I was probably just talking about in the video just now, and I realized that there were a couple of things about this kit that I wanted to mention, but because I don't script my videos, I forgot to. So I've just got a quick, I got my phone held in my hand here, and I don't have my microphone turned on, but I wanted to point out the two aura shots that come with the kit have this little pack here, which is actually fairly easy to remove, which I don't feel like I see a whole lot of people talking about. It looks like, to me, like that's probably the ammo pack for these, which, I mean, the animation for the intro of the show shows bullet casings being spent out the back of this as it shoots, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's got a clip or a magazine, whichever one you would call that. But yeah, both of them can do that. And then the other detail that I wanted to mention in this video but completely forgot about is just how few seam lines there are on this kit. The only real noticeable ones are here on the shoulders, because the forearms, that is a mold line, that is not a seam line. They are molded as one single piece. Same with the biceps, and they hide the gap between these two parts here with that bit of detail there. And then obviously the legs have these stripes going up their length, so they're molded as halves that can seamlessly go together without a seam there. And I did try to put the sword back in its hand for this little shot here. I cannot get that sword to stay in the hand. It is so frustrating. So yeah, those are just a couple of extra things I wanted to mention. Back to the regular video. So it's a little difficult to compare this thing in scale since I don't have anything that's 1/35th scale. The only exception is, and I want to thank my dad actually for bringing this to my attention, Lego minifigures are roughly 1/35th scale themselves, so I can put Lego minifigs in front of this, both for my usual desk stuff, physical comparison, as well as a bit of a scale comparison, just because they're about the same height as our Shozama standing figure. So anything in scale to a Lego minifigure is technically in scale to this, so I want to show off just a couple of things in my collection that sort of help convey the scale of this thing, since that's something I like to do with our size comparisons. But then, as a physical kit, if I put it next to, say, something like my Motoroid Zabungle, it makes it look small, even though in real life, these things would be very different in size, with the Zabungle towering over the Dunbine here. But yeah, so just seeing how physically it compares to, I'll just put a few kits from my collection on screen here. I'll let future me decide which ones those are going to be. And then just for fun, I'm going to try including a new thing in our size comparisons here. I'm putting the 30 Minute Sisters Alcacardi here just for one specific friend of mine who I know has that kit, and I want them to also have a good sense of how big the ones I look at are. So shout out to them, you know who you are. And if any of you in the audience have this kit as well, there's a bit of a physical comparison for you to help convey how big this is without actually having it in front of you. But yeah, so to reiterate a couple of the things I've said already, the ABS in this kit is a blessing and a curse. It makes the kit fairly sturdy in most aspects, and the screws also definitely help with that. But one thing I neglected to mention about the legs is that, yes, the black stripe in them is molded as... Oop, you can't see that. Molded into the plastic. That's not painted, it's not stickers, that is plastic part separation. But these parts are ABS, which I know that they're also critical to these elbow or these knee and hip joints in these legs. So I want to top coat this kit, maybe in a matte, maybe in a semi-gloss, but aside from maybe my water-based Gundam marker top coats, I don't know what could really be a safe and effective way of doing that, because when they're so critical to the function of the articulation, you don't want those plastics getting brittle on you. So something I'm going to have to think about whenever I get around to painting this. I do not know when that'll be at this time, but yeah, that ABS sturdy inner frame, even though it's not very articulate, but exposed on the outside, so you got to be careful when painting it. And then really just to repeat, and I guess I should go into, I went into a little more detail about this in my live streams. This was not a fun kit to build. I would not recommend this unless you have built a ton of kits, and especially a ton of older kits before this. If you really like the Master Grade G Gundam kits, maybe you'll like this. The difference between those and this one is that those used rubber parts in the feet and for the hands, and basically nowhere else, which resulted in a kit that could articulate fairly well, even though it wasn't as good as a modern kit would be, but it wasn't having those joints spring back open because of rubber in the coverings in there, which I guess is a little bit more just of the design of that Gundam versus the design of this Aura Battler here. But to go back to my original point, yeah, this is not a fun build. It's tedious, it's confusing because the manual isn't as clear as it probably should be, but in the end you get a very beautiful, very well done representation of the Dunbine. I'm just gonna have its wings fully spread here while I give my closing thoughts, just because, I mean, look at that. Look at that. Let me just quick measure this here. If I have the wings fully extended, we're looking at roughly 33 centimeters or 13 inches wingtip to wingtip. Just to even further add to the huge presence that this thing has, it's stunning. Even if it can't really pose all that well, it can't hold its sword all that well, and these things, I mean, should have mentioned this when I brought them up earlier. Hook them into the claws. There's no hole in the arm, there's no peg in the weapon, you just push it on, and the friction of these is all that holds it in place. And it holds it in there decently, but you bump it too hard, it is going to fall off. But if you have it in a stable shelf, it doesn't rock around too much, I don't think it'll give you that much trouble. Although I will say posing with it is awkward as hell, because they're on the back of the arm, which is accurate to the anime, but unfortunate. And oh, how the hell? The rubber part came untucked in the arm, probably when I was trying to show off the elbow bend. Yeah, pesky, pesky rubber. I'm glad Bandai doesn't really use rubber in its kits anymore for reasons like this. Okay, hopefully that's in there better, but I think it's not because the arm doesn't want to really do a full extension. I'll perform surgery on that later. I'm rambling again. If you are okay with a kit that is crazy, complicated, and confusing to build, requires lots of screws, and does require a bit of very careful paint planning, go for it. If you're able to find this kit for sale, it's a design that you like, and you don't mind any of the drawbacks I mentioned about it, I would say pick one up for yourself. Maybe Bandai will put it up on pre-Bandai again, or Premium Bandai again, which is not ideal, but if that's how they want to go about it, that's how they want to go about it. I do believe some folks still have this in stock somewhere. You just got to know where to look. And like I said, I got this on Amazon from a Japanese importer, so there is some stock floating around. This kit originally asked for about $30, $30 to $40 if you convert yen to dollars. I don't want to try and do inflation right now because that was 25 years ago, so I imagine it would be maybe 40 or 50 now. I got this for about 70, and I think it's worth it for me. I love this design. I can't wait to have it painted and on display with the rest of my collection, since I'm trying to get more 80s mecha that isn't Gundam, and it's honestly a trip that I'm really enjoying going on, so I hope to share more of that with you folks in the future, of course. Yeah, I'd say a solid maybe on the recommendation of this. You may be better off getting the newer high grade if Bandai ever reprints that dang thing. I want to get one, Bandai. I want to get an high grade Elgime too. Make more stock of it. But yeah, thank you all for watching this video. If you were wondering anything about this kit, I hope I answered any questions you had about it and helped you decide whether or not you want to get one for yourself. Thank you for making it this far in the video, and I think I do want to briefly mention, I do believe I posted this on my Blue Sky. I'm looking to do videos bi-weekly rather than weekly, just to give me more time to edit them, more time to build other kits, and potentially streaming more as well. I want to try doing that twice a month if my schedule allows it. But speaking of my YouTube channel, after this goes up, I don't think I'm going to do a live stream the Saturday after this goes up, maybe the week after that. But my next upload after this one, I may not have the high-grade Elgime, but I was able to get one high-grade kit from Elgime, and I think this one is a worthy candidate for my next video. I hope to see you there. Thank you again for watching. I hope you have a lovely day, a lovely afternoon, a lovely evening, whatever time it is for you. Y'all have a good one. See you in the next video. See you in the next video.